It's late and you're still awake, going over the same thing again. A conversation from this afternoon, a decision you haven't made, something you said that you're not sure landed quite right. You've turned it over 20 times now, and you're no closer to anything, just more tired and somehow more tangled. And you know what makes it worse? You know you're doing it. You can feel yourself doing it, and knowing doesn't stop it. If anything, now you're overthinking the fact that you can't stop overthinking. Most of what you'll find on this topic tells you to quiet your mind, breathe, let the thoughts pass. And maybe that helps for a minute, but it never really explains the thing you actually want explained. Why does the loop keep running? What's feeding it? Because it clearly isn't just a bad habit you can decide your way out of. Something is keeping it alive. Let me give you the tool I use to take something like this apart. I work in a framework of my own. I call it psychological architecture. And the idea behind it is that whatever you're going through, you're really going through four things at once. There's the way you're reading a situation. There's what you feel. There's what the moment seems to say about who you are. And there's what it all ends up meaning to you, how much it matters. Mind, emotion, identity, meaning. And the part that matters most is that these aren't sitting in separate rooms. Push on one and it pushes on the next. So let's watch what overthinking actually does once it gets going, as it moves through all four of those domains. Obviously, it starts in the mind, which is where you'd expect it to start, because overthinking looks like a thinking problem. But here's the first thing to understand. Your mind isn't malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what minds are built to do. They search for resolution. They close open loops. Give the mind a puzzle that has an answer, and that's an extraordinary gift. That is the mind at its best. The trouble starts when you hand it a question that has no answer, a conversation that already happened, a decision that depends on things you can't know yet, what another person is really feeling. The mind doesn't notice that the game has changed. It just goes to work the way it always does, running the loop, looking for a resolution that isn't there. And each pass feels like progress. That's the trap. It feels like you're getting somewhere, right up until you notice you've been standing in the same place the whole time. But it doesn't stay in the mind, because all that circling produces something. That's emotion, the low hum of anxiety underneath it, the restlessness. And notice what that feeling does. Anxiety doesn't just make the problem feel unpleasant. It makes it feel real. The feeling itself becomes evidence that something important must still be unresolved. Why would I feel this way if there were nothing here to fix? So the mind keeps working because the feeling told it to. Now watch where it goes next, into identity. Because after enough repetition, something shifts. The mind stops describing the behavior and starts describing the person. It isn't, I've been overthinking lately. Now it's, I'm an overthinker. This is just how my brain works. I can't turn it off. I wish I could get to sleep. And notice, you didn't decide that. You inferred it. You watched yourself do the thing enough times that it stopped looking like something you were doing and started looking like something you are. And that's the move that really locks it in. Because a temporary state is something you can pass through. A fact about yourself is something you just live inside. You stop fighting it. You start expecting it, planning around it, bracing for it, which quietly gives the loop permission to keep running, because running is simply what you do now. And once it's a part of who you are, it changes what the thinking means. That's meaning. The overthinking starts to feel like diligence, like care, like the responsible thing to do. If I stop turning this over, maybe that means I don't care enough. Maybe I'll miss something. Maybe this thinking is the only thing standing between me and the mistake. And that's the moment everything changes because you're no longer afraid of the problem. You're afraid of stopping. And that fear feeds straight back into the mind. It hands the loop a reason to keep going. Of course you can't stop. Stopping would be careless. So you think some more, which produces more anxiety, which makes the problem feel more real, which confirms one more time that you're just someone whose mind works this way. That's the architecture at work. And seeing it is what takes it apart. Because the loop was never really about the problem you thought you were solving. The problem was just the excuse. What kept it running was everything downstream. The anxiety that made it feel real, the identity that made it feel permanent, the meaning that made it feel responsible. And here's the thing about the problem sitting at the center of it all. Most of the time, it was never solvable by thinking in the first place. You can't think your way into what someone else is feeling. You can't think your way into knowing how something will turn out. Those aren't problems, they're uncertainties. And the mind mistakes uncertainty for unfinished work. But uncertainty isn't unfinished work. It's simply one of the conditions of being alive. That's the error underneath the whole thing. The mind wasn't chasing certainty. It was refusing to admit that certainty wasn't available. So you don't quiet an overthinking mind by trying harder to stop. You quiet it by handing it back the truth it's been circling all along, that some questions don't have answers, and that not having one was never the emergency it felt like.